Okay, so I had a little trouble with the PowerPoint, so I'm just doing a Zoom this way. So my name is Ashton Painter, and I'm going to be talking about inattentive ADD. So what is attentive ADD? Attentive defective disorder, or ADD, is diagnosed term formerly used to diagnose people with attention defective hyperactivity disorder, or ADHD. That's normally what it's common. There is a little bit of a difference between the two, but they're very, very similarly related to each other. So inattentive ADD is primarily the form of ADD that is presented in adults and in children's, and that is the one that we normally see in a school environment or out in public. That tends to be what we normally see. So some facts about it is statistics have shown that more than 6.4 million American children are living with ADD. So more likely you're going to have a child who has ADD in your classroom at one point. You're probably going to have one maybe every year with this average rate, or you might even have a few in your class, depending if you're just a special ed or if you're a gen ed teacher, you're going to have multiple kids who have that. And there's a 42% increase in diagnosis in the last 8 years. So that's a pretty big jump. That's almost 50%. So it shows you there are a lot of children who have this, and we just need to be ready to handle what is coming our way. In 2019, AD is now the most commonly diagnosed mental disorder of children. So they kind of taken away from the ADHD. So that's kind of where they separate it. Now they're saying AD is a mental disorder, but it will affect both teens and children. So some basic characteristics with ADD is they often fail to pay close attention to details in their schoolwork and just make a little careless mistake. So one could be they forget to write their name on the top of the paper, and that's just a careless mistake, or they forget to, put a period at the end or make a capitalization where it should be. So just careless little things that we think of like, oh, that's easy for us. They might just miss those. They often have trouble holding attention or staying on task, so they get very distracted very easily. So it's important to, not have too many distracting things in your class, and you have to help them. Hey, like, you gotta redirect them to their paper. You might have to sit with them and kind of just tap on their desk to get them to keep working. And they often don't look at you when you're speaking to them. So they often would either look to the sides of you or look like they're looking beyond you. They just sometimes they just can't make eye contact. And as us, we think, oh, they're not listening to us because they're not making eye contact. Sometimes that's not the case. And sometimes that just happens because they just can't. They just don't know how to hold that eye contact. And they often fail to follow instructions in schoolwork, chores, or just anything like that. So they might, say, hey, okay, we're going to work on this math paper, and they start working on it. And then halfway through, they stop and they get out one of their fidget toys. So they just don't have a very good following directions because they lose that attention span. So some symptoms is they don't pay attention to details. They make minor careless errors. They appear to not be listening when they're spoken to. They have difficulty remembering what to do. It's not very organized and struggles with planning ahead. So a lot of times these kids' desks are crazy messy. They will lose papers, such as what that says, frequently lose things such as homework. So if they don't have a homework turn in, 9 times out of 10, it's probably going to be in their desk. So it's important to help these kids learn how to stay organized. And if that means maybe having a couple extra folders or a couple extra things to help them. So just finding a good strategy to help them stay organized not only helps you, but also helps those kids learn how to be organized and use that skill. So differences in students. So in childhood, ADD is diagnosed 3 times more often than in boys than in girls. And I think we don't always see that common because what seems like boys are the more hyper children when they're younger than girls. They have a lot more energy to burn. And this is one of those signs is many boys have ADHD. And that's not saying that girls don't, but it tends to come out more in boys. And in adulthood, the ratio is pretty equal to each other. So the reason that is girls don't get diagnosed very often when they're young. It more happens to when they're more come adults. So that's how that shift the ratio gets smaller and gets more equal because they then diagnose the women in adulthood. So they feel that many childhood girls, they feel like they're getting undiagnosed, and that is something to watch out for. So if you notice a child is struggling in school, maybe send a letter home to their parents. Hey, I've been noticing some symptoms. These are symptoms of this. I think you should go check with your doctor just so we can get the help that she needs. Because like it says, they don't get diagnosed as much, so maybe that could be a case. So causes. So the causes of ADHD isn't really known and they don't really know what it is, but they think it's a genetic link. So about 3 out of 4 children with ADHD have a relative who have it. So that goes to show it's probably a genetic link. So that's get passed. And based on, since one parent might have ADHD, but it's not super like bad and super extreme, doesn't mean that child's gonna be the exact same way. That child could just have like a little bit, or they could have all kinds of ADHD where they can't focus, they can't sit still, they're constantly up and walking, they're constantly doing all this. It just kind of depends on the child and what that situation is. So some accommodations to help your children in the classroom with this is have clear classroom rules. If you can set those clear rules in the beginning and remind them, hey, is that one of our rules? That'll help with them. That'll help keep their like sanity in line and help them kind of focus a little bit more. Consider their needs. So these kids, they have all kinds of different needs. Some might need medicine, others just might need, like a time out. Like be considerate of their needs. These kids don't choose to have this, and oftentimes they don't choose to lash out and whatever behavior is happening. It just happens because of that. So if they need to, go get some medicine, let them go to the nurse. Even if it stops them from learning, let them go get that help they need. So consider their needs and what is best for them. Make sure the curriculum is appropriate for the child. So don't make it, too boring to where they are like, I don't want to do this, they're not paying attention. But also don't make it too hard to where they get frustrated and they don't want to do that. So it's kind of that happy medium, but you still want to push them to get better. Give them time for themselves. This kind of goes back to the consider their needs. So give them time for themselves. Maybe they need a 5-minute brain break. Maybe they need to play with their fidget toys. Fidget toys are becoming very popular and they often help some children. So maybe that's just what they need. So give them time for that. Be patient. Listen to their needs. Working with children who have a special need takes a lot of patience and it is always easier said than done. And as you grow, you will learn different, skills, different ways, and you'll be able to, stop, take that deep breath and calm down, like, okay, let's see how we can fix this. So just stuff like that. So be patient with these children. Again, they're not doing this on purpose sometimes. This just it's how they are. So structure rules and lectures. So having a structured lecture helps them because it helps them learn how to be organized and stay on task if you are showing that. And also having a structured lecture won't let you wander off and then the children won't wander off. So it's kind of like a meet me in the middle situation. And finally, let them participate in classroom activities. These kids don't want to be seen as the kid with ADD or ADHD. They don't want to be seen as that. They just want to, go play with their friends, go run outside, go play football, they want to be seen as fellow classmates. They want to feel included. So it is important as teachers to make sure those kids are getting included and that they're not always getting to be picked last. So that could be a situation of where you would assign the groups or you would maybe have that child pick groups for once. It just kind of depends on whatever structure you're doing. So just let these kids, have a chance to be with their peers. Don't single them out because they have this. That is nothing to be ashamed of. And then these are my resources, and I hope you guys learned a little bit about inattentive ADD and how it also connects to ADHD. So thank you.